that the only course was a candid and complete renunciation. It was not as though my divinity had a penny of her own, or I could earn an honest one. I had explained to Raffles that she was an orphan, who spent most of her time with an aristocratic aunt in the country, and the remainder under the repressive roof of a pompous politician in Palace Gardens. The aunt had, I believe, still a sneaking softness for me, but her illustrious brother had set his face against me from the first. "Hector Carruthers," murmured Raffles, repeating the detested name with his clear, cold eye on mine. "I suppose you haven't seen much of him." "Not a thing for ages," I replied. "I was at the house 2 or 3 days last year, but they've neither asked me since nor been at home to me when I've called. The old beast seems a judge of men." And I laughed bitterly in my glass. "Nice house?" said Raffles, glancing at himself in his silver cigarette-case. "Top shelf," said I. "You know the houses in Palace Gardens, don't you?" "Not so well as I should like to know them, Bunny." "Well, it's about the most palatial of the lot. The old ruffian is as rich as Croesus. It's a country place in town." "What about the window fastenings?" asked Raffles casually. I recoiled from the open cigarette-case that he proffered as he spoke. Our eyes met, and in his there was that starry twinkle of mirth and mischief, that sunny beam of audacious devilment, which had been my undoing 2 months before, which was to undo me as often as he chose until the chapter's end. Yet for once I withstood its glamour. For once I turned aside that luminous glance with front of steel. There was no need for Raffles to voice his plans. I read them all between the strong lines of his smiling, eager face, and I pushed back my chair in the equal eagerness of my own resolve. "Not if I know it," said I. "A house I've dined in, a house I've seen her in, a house where she stays by the month together. Don't put it into words, Raffles, or I'll get up and go." "You mustn't do that before the coffee and liqueur," said Raffles, laughing. "Have a small Sullivan first. It's the royal road to a cigar. And now let me observe that your scruples would do you honor if old Carruthers still lived in the house in question." "Do you mean to say he doesn't?" Raffles struck a match and handed it first to me. "I mean to say, my dear Bunny, that Palace Gardens knows the very name no more. You began by telling me you had heard nothing of these people all this year. That's quite enough to account for our little misunderstanding. I was thinking of the house, and you were thinking of the people in the house." "But who are they, Raffles? Who has taken the house? If old Carruthers has moved, how do you know that it's still worth a visit?" "In answer to your first question, Lord Lochmaben," replied Raffles, blowing bracelets of smoke toward the ceiling. "You look as though you had never heard of him. But as the cricket and racing are the only part of your paper that you condescend to read, you can't expect to keep track of all the peers created in your time. Your other question is not worth answering. How do you suppose that I know these things? It's my business to get to know them, and that's all there is to it. As a matter of fact, Lady Lochmaben has just as good diamonds as Mrs. Carruthers ever had, and the chances are that she keeps them where Mrs. Carruthers kept hers, if you could enlighten me on that point." As it happened, I could, since I knew from his niece that it was one on which Mr. Carruthers had been a faddist in his time. He had made quite a study of the cracksman's craft, in a resolve to circumvent it with his own. I remembered myself how the ground-floor windows were elaborately bolted and shuttered, and how the doors of all the rooms opening upon the square inner hall were fitted with extra Yale locks, at an unlikely height, not to be discovered by one within the room. It had been the butler's business to turn and to collect all these keys before retiring for the night, but the key of the safe in the study was supposed to be in the jealous keeping of the master of the house himself. That safe was in its turn so ingeniously hidden that I never should have found it for myself. I well remember how one who showed it to me, in the innocence of her heart, laughed as she assured me that even her little trinkets were solemnly locked up in it every night. It had been let into the wall behind one end of the bookcase, expressly to preserve the barbaric splendor of Mrs. Carruthers. Without a doubt these Lochmabens would use it for the same purpose.